Customer Chief Minister, my first question to both of you. What are both your initial reactions to the resignation of Dr. Rachel Glover this week, and why do you think that situation has reached this point?
I'm very surprised. I think as David has been dealing with this, I'll let David answer this one on our behalf, both our behalf.
Yes, thank you, Rob. Obviously, I'm saddened that Rachel's decided to take that course of action, but it is a decision for her. But I think one of the important things to stress is our entire response. We have very highly qualified microbiologists. We have very highly qualified staff in pathology. Our entire system is not based around one individual person. And I know that some staff within the department have actually been quite upset about the way things have been reported over the last few weeks, in terms of the fact that it's been suggested that everything is reliant on one person. In fact, you've given me an ideal opportunity, because I actually received a letter yesterday from a member of DHSC staff, which, with your indulgence, Chief Minister, I will actually read. I've spoken to the person. They're happy enough for me to read the letter as long as I don't share their name. But they wrote to me, which I received last night, in the following terms: "Dear Minister, I'm writing to you to make you aware of how demoralised many of us feel over the media coverage of the last few weeks. The implication that our entire testing regime is down to one individual and would not function without them is as far from the truth as can be. The media reporting and social media comments that I have seen over the last week or so have left me feeling, why do I bother? We are very lucky on Ireland to have highly trained and skilled staff who, by working as a team, have been able to put in place a testing regime that is second to none and would be the envy of many countries. But for the media to portray that this is down to one individual, or push that individual's views as definitive, is highly insulting to the rest of us who over this year have also worked long hours and sacrificed both personal and family life in order to keep our island safe. Dr. Glover deserves praise for the work that she has undertaken, part of a wider team. Those of us in the wider team have just quietly got on with our jobs. We are not looking for praise or recognition, but when you see headlines suggesting and portraying that one individual is responsible for all of the hard work undertaken by the entire team, it is a real body blow. The implication felt by many of us is that it is being implied that the rest of us are either not qualified or competent enough to do our jobs, which could not be further from the truth. I wish that both the media and those on social media would think before they publish or post, and think about the demoralising effect that ill-informed comments can have on those of us who have been working above and beyond, day in and day out, for over half a year now. I will leave it there, but I can't help but say that the last week and a bit has felt like a real kick in the teeth to all of us who have worked so hard to ensure we have a system that works, and can't emphasise enough how demoralised it has left many of us feeling, who are just quietly getting on with our jobs in helping to keep our island safe. So I want to put on record my thanks to the entire team, both across microbiology and pathology. Rachel has played an absolutely important part in that. We have employed her for her skills. She has, as a contractor, she has done an extreme amount of work, but it is the wider team as well. And we do have very robust systems within both pathology and microbiology, and a range of highly skilled staff. And I want to put on record my sincere thanks to them today.
Before I give my first question, I do have to make some sort of retort to what you read out, Mr. Ashwood. You're basically trying to put here that the press shouldn't do their job. Surely the fact is our job is to question what we know about, and because Dr. Glover hasn't done any press, we are only going on her tweets, but that is our position. Surely we can't be blamed, and I'm using that word as the press, for reporting things. I mean, that's how it came across when you read that out.
I'm not blaming the media in any way for reporting things. What I am doing is I'm reading out a letter which I have received from a member of staff, which I received in the post.
Okay, it does sound like shooting the messenger, that's all.
Which I think their view is just as legitimate as anyone else's. But it is important that there is balance to these things, and I think that letter brings balance to this.
And your job is to obviously retort to things that come up. That's what we're doing these press conferences about.
Yeah, and in fact, we did an interview on Monday where we discussed this very issue.
Did. Right, now Rachel Glover gave a presentation to Tynwald on Tuesday, didn't she? So was her information well received? Was it acted upon? And what happened? What extra can you tell us about that?
Well, the presentation to Tynwald members was around testing. So it was around PCR, what does a PCR test do? So it was factual information, it wasn't recommendations or anything like that. It was explaining what a PCR test is, what its limitations are, and why it is classed as the gold standard test. It was an absolutely excellent presentation, it was very well received by members, and I think it has made it a lot clearer to members of Tynwald why we use PCR testing, and why that is the gold standard test compared to all the tests that are on the market.
So you'll be acting upon her advice on that, will you?
Well, there was no advice. It was a technical presentation around how PCR works.
Yeah. Can I just remind you, Paul, before you start your second question, that we have Mr. Khan, who is head of our microbiology, and a number of highly qualified people in that team who advise government and advise our Gold Committee on the decisions which help the Council of Ministers form their decisions. So this, whilst we respect the information and the presentation was very good and well attended by all accounts, we have our own qualified people who are full-time employees of government advising the Council of Ministers on this one. So your next question, Paul.
Well, the reason we didn't have the press conference yesterday, it said workshop. So I understand it really was a tabletop exercise by Komen, looking at all the different scenarios. And you've released some of that information there, what you said earlier. Was there more to it? Have you got a full way forward from now on, that you have a pathway that you can take?
Well, yes, we've released some of what we discussed yesterday, Paul, but obviously there was more where Council of Ministers needed further information. I don't like announcing things until we've got a clear pathway on how we're going to operate it and make sure that we can operate that. And we felt we needed another week on some of the greater detail on how we were going to implement what we're going to announce. So I would hope that next week we'll have more from yesterday's meeting, but it did go on a lot longer because we're dealing with a highly complex situation at this moment. It's fast moving, and we've got to get it right or as best as we can for the people of the island. I don't know, David, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so obviously Council of Ministers continuously reviews the policies we have in place. We tend to review policies on a 2-week rolling basis, which I think we've discussed in interviews before, Paul. This is no different. Yesterday we were looking at all the various facets. Obviously the change in the situation in the UK, where it continues to see growth, plays into that. So it was one of those review processes and times.
So you've got a book basically for everything. Well, today obviously things can change, but you've sort of got a blueprint for various scenarios. Would that be the correct way of putting this?
Well, we look at every single policy that we have in operation at that particular time, and whether it is still working and whether we need to adapt things. And that is the correct way to do it, because all of the different policies interlink.